recording on this one and backup recording. Oh, it's a good thing that here we go. Zoom. Are you working? There we go. See, it's a good thing I checked my work here because I was not recording things. Okay, start recording. Awesome. I have no idea how we're going to be laid out on the screen in the final thing because right now you're on top of me.
Side by side. Oh, on mine we're side by side.
Oh, now we're side by side.
There.
I like that better. Yeah, you're over here now, so I just widened my window. So, hello everybody. Welcome to episode 23 of Transcending Humanity. I'm Vanessa. I'm joined by Erica. We're trying a new format for the show. I'm going to see how people like it, so please send us your feedback. We're going to be just kind of focusing on the first half of the episode, just kind of catching up, talking about, stuff, just conversational. And then second half of the episode, we will be talking about news or other kind of current events, stuff like that. Today is pretty much going to be the Erin Reed appreciation half hour. So yeah, here we are. Erica, what's going on with you? How goes the everything?
How goes the everything? Hi, everybody. Things are going well. Haven't really made this public, but I know Vanessa knows. I'm looking for a new company to land with, and that's kind of going okay. Does seem like anybody on the job market does seem like the predictions of things picking up in September are coming true. Now I'm in tech, so I can only talk about tech. But it brings up a couple of interesting points I'd love to make. Actually, just kind of riffing off the top of my head and. Especially when you're looking for a new job as a trans person, it's very, can be quite difficult, right? There are companies that are better than others, right? In terms of not giving a rat's ass that we're trans and just treating us like humans. And there are some companies that are like, no, I'm not talking to you, right? And it's been a really interesting experience. And I really kind of wrestled with, do I put something on my resume about being trans? It's on LinkedIn. Like if you go visit my LinkedIn profile, which is how Vanessa and I originally connected, you can't miss it.
Yeah, same with mine.
You can't miss it. Out. So it's there. We're very out people. And so recently I took it off my resume just to see if that might help. Because I usually led with how in the top of resume, Vanessa, you do like a summary, like I'm all these awesome things. And I led with I'm a proud transgender woman. So recently I took that off to see if that would help. And anecdotally, it's helping. Now, I will say this. I also completely revamped my resume, took a look at what's happening in the job market today, took a look at job descriptions. So I can't say it's one-to-one, but it's helping.
It's hard. It's hard to compare.
It's hard to compare. But since I work in tech, I have the ability to focus on some more LGBT forward companies. I can't name any names because I'm in the interview process and that would not be smart, but it's going well. And one of the things I actually get asked a lot, I don't mind kind of addressing here, is do you announce yourself in the interview process? And I know there's some of us that don't, and some of us who pass and don't, and that's perfectly acceptable. For me, I use it as an opportunity to be like, this is who I am. This is who you're getting. So I can ask the recruiter, the HR people right away, what's going to happen when I'm working on a project in your company and someone doesn't appreciate me because I'm trans? What are you going to do about it? So it gives me an entree to start talking about what are your HR policies, what does inclusion and belonging look like, what's the posture, and it also, as someone who's interviewed for tons of jobs in my lifetime, as well as hired hundreds of people, it gives me a chance to put the interviewer on their back feet and see how they respond. Because there's rote responses, but when you get to people at truth, then you know what you're dealing with. So anyway, it's just a little anecdotal, like, if you don't want to say it, don't say anything. If you have the privilege of passing, kudos to you. If you don't like me, use it as an opportunity to be like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
What is that going to be a problem? So there's that. I am also currently virtually attending the Out and Equal conference, which is going on this week, which is if you aren't aware of it, it is the largest queer workplace inclusion conference in the world. And it's really a great thing to get to. Now, it's in Florida this year at Disney, which is problematic. But they've done a lot to take care of their trans people to make sure that they're not out in public and don't have to worry about bathrooms or anything.
Good. So
tons of security. But this year, if your company is not a partner with Out and Equal, you can't attend. Like they've locked it down. They don't want randos showing
That's
up.
good.
Which means people who aren't with like a big financial company or a big tech company and you're not a partner, you can't attend virtually or even in person where in previous years. But anyways, I've been able to go and there's some really great things, especially like there's this really big push for trans leadership and trans executive leadership within some of the larger companies. And it's really nice to see that on this sort of national and global stage
Yeah.
for companies like Adele, like Accenture, like Apple and Microsoft to say, we are working on leadership track for trans people in the workplace. Like maybe we'll hit the C-suite soon.
We need
We
it.
don't have currently a trans person in the C-suite.
Really?
No, we
Anywhere?
do not. I mean, let's be honest. There's probably someone that has a
Yeah.
small company that has a trans person on their leadership board, but when we're talking about
Large
corporations,
scale.
yeah.
That
So
needs
it's
to be fixed.
been nice to go to that this week. Otherwise, I'm doing really well. I had my checkup with my trans doctor yesterday. Things are going good. I've 3 months post ORT, and things are going really well with that.
I can't believe it's been 3 months already.
I know it's wild. It's been 3 months since that happened. Much faster recovery, as you know.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that I did that. I can't recommend that for enough for those of you that want to pursue that, especially if you're still considering whether or not you would even do vaginoplasty, which I'm not sure about.
Mhm.
Right. And so I'll also be trying going on progesterone here in a couple
You're
of
starting
days.
that? Yeah.
Yes. So we'll see how that goes.
It also makes an amazing sleeping pill. You take it at night and it knocks you out within a
That's
half hour. It's great.
that's what I've heard, and I need
Yeah.
help with that as someone who is 8 years older than 45. As I said to someone yesterday, I'll be 45 for the 8th time this year when I have my birthday in 2 months. Other than that, it's fall. We have a big trip coming up out of the country in November. We're going to Egypt. So just kind of planning and getting ready for that.
Ooh, you have to
Oh
take all
yeah.
the pictures.
Oh, we will. And
All the
this is like
pictures.
a bucket list lifetime trip, particularly because my partner is an anthropologist and was an archaeologist earlier in their career. So like it's a
Goosebumps.
big deal. Yes. So I'll be sending pictures. We're doing like the whole river cruise thing.
Ooh,
Um,
it's so cool.
oh yeah. I can't wait to. We'll come back and have it'll be actually a really good idea for an episode, Vanessa, which is traveling as LGBTQ.
Yeah, that's actually a question
Safe
I
travel.
had too, especially into Islamic countries. Like, how
Yeah.
are you expected to present yourself?
So that
So,
I'll touch on this one briefly because we've had
okay.
some conversations with it. We are sticking with a travel company that was like number one for us. So we will only be in tourist areas with other tourists. So it'll likely be fine. In
Okay.
general, when you go to Egypt, it doesn't really matter what gender you are, but you need to cover up because that's just local culture. Now, if you're a
Mhm.
woman, you need to cover up even more.
Yeah.
So I will probably play things down a little bit and just keep it covered up. And when we're on like our little river cruise ship, I won't worry about it too much. But when I'm at like a pyramid or a museum or something, I'll take the same precautions that any cisgender woman would take.
Hmm.
And there's just if you follow the local guidelines, we've heard it should be totally fine. Now, if we were going to travel off on our own outside the travel company, then it could be a real problem for me.
Yeah. 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 And I was like, when you said Egypt, I'm like, ooh, that's both amazing and terrifying at the same time. So,
I know. Well, we went to Mexico earlier this year. We went to the Dominican Republic last year, so I've got some experience traveling internationally now as
mhm.
trans, and it's been fine. But you do have to do your research and think, no, like, what's the what's the position of the attitude around trans people and LGBTQ
Yeah.
people. Now,
It's,
Mexico and Dominican Republic are very friendly because let's be honest, everybody goes to Cancun, right?
mhm.
Right, talks. So that's what's going on with me. What's happening with you?
Well, following up on the job search thing with you, I'm doing the same. And I think there are two C-suite eligible people here on this podcast right now. So we both have that sort of experience. Um,
Not sure which way you are on screen, but hire
yeah,
her
you are this
or
way, even
hire
though I'm
her.
pointing to the right, but it's going to the left on the screen here. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Hire this person.
yeah, hire that person. Um, I, when it comes to trans stuff on my resume, the only part I have really mentioning trans on the resume is Transcending Humanity. I put this on my
Mm.
resume because
Hmm.
honestly, it
Hmm.
just makes sense too.
Yeah.
it's kind of a
Yes.
job. There's people management, there's all that stuff. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm putting on a
Well, it's media, it's social media, it's a
yeah,
lot of good digital content creation
exactly.
is valuable in
So
a lot of roles, especially the
yeah.
things that I think you're looking for.
hmm So I changed my resume to be a functional resume. I put my role at
What's a
where I
functional resume?
it's like tightened down. It's less
Oh, I got
wordy.
you. I got
So
you. Like
um,
bullet points and like the things that I
yeah,
did and numbers and
exactly.
metrics. Gotcha.
Because my previous one was like dense and wordy, and
Oh yeah.
I think you have the attention of a recorder for 7 seconds. So it starts off with just some
Yes.
bullet points of what I do, and then I have my four major positions, starting with the most major, which is my oldest one from 2006 to 2019, and with the
Yeah.
major things I did with that. So, and I'm looking
Can I
for HR roles.
can I talk about that for a second? Do you
Yeah.
mind? Um, yeah, so if you're on again, as a person who's done a lot of hiring, I can speak to this anecdotally as well as like what's out there in the industry. If you're looking for a job, that resume has got to be functional, or some people say punchy, right? Quick description of the job and like, here's what I achieved, boom, 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 boom. Because people are going to look at it 7 to 10 seconds. That's if you're lucky, because it's going to get
Yeah.
passed through a machine first, AI. And I can tell you, like, a lot of people come into interviews having barely looked at your information, barely.
hmm
Just maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute before, maybe they looked at your LinkedIn profile. So it's got to be really good and solid and punchy and demonstrative. But then you need to come in being prepared to say, this is who I am, because they probably have no clue.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen to Erica. She knows what she's talking about. She's done that kind of recruiting. My recruiting is, I've also hired hundreds of people, but mine have been more in person
Yeah.
factory roles. So,
Right.
um,
So mine would be like, I guess they call it professional versus, I don't know, is that factory, is that blue collar? I forget.
yeah,
So it's
blue
a
collar, white
different.
collar,
Yeah.
it's the only
Hmm.
terms I really know for those. So,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah.
sorry, you go back to you talking about you. I just wanted to jump on
Okay.
that real quick.
No, no, this is helpful. So yeah, that's my thing with the resume. I'm actually starting to look at local roles now. I mean, I really want remote, but
Mhm.
these
It's
remote
tough.
roles, yeah, you're up against thousands of other people. So
Yes.
if I can find a
I saw a
yeah,
role that I was really well qualified for, like it would be in like the top 25% according to LinkedIn or whatever. And it
mhm,
had like 2,000 applications. I was like, what?
yeah,
Even if I am the top, how am I going to get noticed? And I was like, it's not worth it. Just moved on.
exactly. Like I still send the applications, but so now I'm looking at roles at like local universities and stuff like that, and just some
Oh,
local
cool.
businesses. But I figure if I can land an HR role, that'll give me some
Hmm.
experience, and then later on I can look for something remote when I need to get out of Ohio. But I need income.
Yes.
I'm only making like maybe $1,000 a month right now, and it's not
Yeah,
enough to live,
that's not good.
especially since I'm
That's not
spending
good.
200 a month on the show. So,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, that's my job hunting. My big news was I went to the country club and joined the
Oh,
Pussy
I've heard good
Patrol.
things about those clubs. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I had a vagina installed 2 weeks ago. That's why there wasn't a show
A high
last
quality,
week.
a luxury one, no
Yes,
doubt.
high quality luxury. It's the Ferrando bespoke Ferrando. My doctor's name is Dr. Ferrando. It's the
The Ferrando's
Ferrando.
bespoke model,
Yeah,
the luxury model,
exactly.
yeah, with
And
all of the features.
yeah, like right before the operation, they when you're gurneyed in and put on the table, they have to ask you just to make sure they know what you're there
One
for. So
last time. One last
yeah,
time.
what are you here for? I said my bespoke Ferrando pussy, and that was appreciated by the crowd gathered
Mhm.
to look at my crotch for 3 hours.
I know. It is a wild
But
experience to go and have surgery, and you go in and they check you into a little like room pre-surgery, and you lay on this bed for a fucking hour,
mhm,
cold, and then they wheel you in, and you're like, you gotta move over and they ask you all the questions, and then 10 seconds later, the world doesn't exist.
yeah, and then all of a sudden you're in another
And
room.
like, yeah.
Like
Hmm.
the I did a Ask Me Anything on Instagram. I'm trying to see if I can download that so I can put it on my YouTube channel. But
How did
um,
that go?
I mean, I had a few people join and ask some good questions. So we just had some technical difficulties there that I'm cutting out. And the recovery has been interesting. Honestly, the thing I was most terrified about with the entire process was not having my entire groin restructured and shoved in and all that stuff. It was the IV. I just hate I hate IVs.
Really?
Yeah. So
Is it like any injection or just particularly IVs?
IVs, like I don't mind just like getting a flu shot or my estrogen shot, but it's stuff where it goes in the veins and stays
Oh,
there.
that
So,
feeling of, yeah.
yeah.
And because I imagine you had that for days.
Yeah, I had the
Yeah,
one
that
right
would,
here for the entire time I was in the hospital, and then I
yeah,
had
that would
one
squick
on
me
my
out.
hand here. Yeah, so I had two of
Uh,
them. I got them to remove this one earlier on, but so then they also put a catheter in you, and
Son of a bitch.
yeah, they're not fun. So the recovery was, I found that I had always suspected that narcotics don't really work on me. Um, And because like anytime had them in the past, like when I had my wisdom teeth out after my Orky, um, they didn't work. And I even had a couple pills left of, I forget which one it was. Oh, I lost you again.
Hi, it's
Hi.
me.
Okay.
I'm the problem. It's me.
You're the problem.
So you were talking about that you had two IVs and
Yeah.
that's IVs really like give you hard times.
Yeah. And I found that the painkillers just aren't working on me. Like even like I took some narcotic painkillers before my electrolysis and it did nothing. And the entire time when they were giving them to me at the hospital, nothing. So,
So like
um,
did you have like a nerve block and then that wore off and that's when you finally started to feel it
I didn't
or
even have that. So I wound up just, only thing that I was able to do anything for my pain was just Tylenol and Motrin. And then
tough it
eventually
out?
they gave me a pump of, I forget what it's called. They use it for like migraine, like quick migraine
I know
relief.
what you're talking about, like naloxone or
Something,
something.
yeah, it's non-narcotic. And that was the only thing that helped. Because the second day I was screaming in agony. Like I was
Yeah,
laying in
I know
bed
you said
screaming and
that.
crying. Um,
I know.
it
Sounds
was hard.
terrible.
Yeah.
It's
And then it
hard.
started to get better. And how they do it at the Cleveland Clinic is you stay in the hospital for a few days, which hospital bed manufacturers, we need to have a chat. Your beds have to cost what? 150,000, something
Probably
stupid
way
like
too
that.
much for how
Yeah.
awful they are.
Why can't you put a mattress on them that doesn't suck? This one, like the bottom of it was like crooked and it just constantly hurt. Put a decent mattress on those fucking things. Seriously, for what it
Particularly
costs
when
to,
when you have to lay there for
yeah.
days and you're not really allowed to move. For whatever surgery is, when you can't get out of bed and you got to lay in an awful bed for days, that just makes it all so much worse.
It was horrible. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and then they had me transferred to the hotel that's attached to the Cleveland Clinic.
Hmm.
And the annoying part about that is insurance didn't cover that, and it was like $300
Hmm.
a night. But I wound up getting a refund for some of it, which is nice. But
Oh,
then the doctor would come and visit me in my hotel room. It was nice. They put you there because if something goes wrong, you can get there
you're
really
close.
quickly, but you also don't have to be stuck in a hospital room, and a bed's much more comfortable. But you have to have someone stay with you.
Come and
So
stay with you. Yeah.
yeah, if you're planning on having the surgery done at the Cleveland Clinic, be sure to have someone lined up that can stay with you, and you're going to need about $1,600 up front to pay for
Yeah.
the hotel. So, which
I
is
feel like we
annoying.
need to have a trans surgery support hotline. Like, not everybody has a person that can come and stay with them for, I think it was like a week, right,
Yeah,
Vanessa?
it was about a week. Yeah.
And like, what do you do in that situation?
I
You
don't
know?
know. You can't get the surgery. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's there has to be you're right, a support network for that. Maybe the thing that Leo's a part of that I'm going to mention here in a little bit. Maybe
Oh,
that's something
yes.
that they can do. So, um the catheter was a problem on Friday
I
night.
recall.
It got clogged. And so
Duh,
that got painful because all my urine started backing up in me.
you couldn't pee. Yeah.
Um And so when the doctor
Oof.
came on Saturday morning, she tried flushing it twice and that still didn't work. So I had to have the wonderful experience of having that catheter removed and another one put in without any anesthetic.
Mm.
Yeah, that
It's killing
was,
me. Just here. I remember you mentioned that, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds so terrible."
it was horrible because everything down there is still really raw too. It's
Mhm.
because they just
Raw
modified
and
the
swollen,
urethra.
and yeah,
Yeah, so that wasn't fun, but she,
yikes! You
yeah,
really went through it. I hope
yeah,
it's going better now.
but then I could pee. And then, so I had the surgery on the 28th, and the following Monday, doctor came and took the second catheter out and took the packing out of my vaginal canal, and I was allowed to shower.
That's the
And
best.
oh, girl, it was like the best shower ever. So, yeah, and since then, it's just they after that they teach you how to dilate. There's
After you shower,
yeah, after you shower.
hmm
Well, it was the next day that I got taught
yeah,
that.
sometime very soon after they remove the packing,
Yeah,
you got to start dilating, right?
exactly. So you dilate 3 times a day for the first 3 months, and then for 3 to 6 months is twice a day, 6 to 12 months is once a day, and after that, either a few times a week or just get laid with something that penetrates you
Yeah.
a few times a week. So, but yeah,
Fuck. What is the
they
problem today?
they they actually told me to start the second size up of dilator now, which feels kind of soon. I tried it last night, and it was intimidating because it's quite a bit bigger than the smallest one. But then when I removed it, it looks like there's a little bit of a prolapse or something. So I took a picture and sent it to my doctor, and yeah, um,
Hmm.
that's my vagina experience. Now I just, dilate 3 times a day and wear pads and make all sorts of gross things on the pads. So,
Yeah.
but
It is a full-time job
it
for a
is.
while,
It
and
is.
it's a lot. It's a lot. So
But
kudos to you for getting what you needed done for you, and kudos for you for continuing to deal with it day after day. What I learned after my surgery is like, this is relatively minor care, and I'm already over it. So
mhm.
maybe really think about, do I want to go through that?
It really depends because it's all about the dysphoria that people have.
Yeah,
Like, I
totally.
hated, I hate penises, period. I hated having one. And like, I don't miss it at all, period. Like, I didn't, like, because it was the wrong thing. A lot of
Yeah,
trans people don't have dysphoria around having a penis. So,
right.
but having an orky is just fucking smart because then you can go off of your testosterone blockers and stuff like that. So,
And you would have to be, someone have to force you on injections of testosterone to make you go backwards.
exactly.
Right. So for me, it was
Exactly.
also like a little bit of hedging my bets against the sort of the legal
Yeah.
climate.
Though I've even seen some things like some from the really radical right things where they're like, well, trans people that have had gender confirming surgery, we're gonna have to reverse that. I'm like,
You can't.
yeah. I'm like, how would you even know?
You
Um,
can't. And when you take a look at what's required for trans masculine folks, that's mini surgeries.
mhm.
That's not, no, you can't just
No,
reverse it.
it's major. So yeah,
Mm.
orchies are. I recommend orchies to any trans person that, and unless you plan on having kids, which is a whole other difficult thing too when you've been on estrogen for a while. But if you
Yeah.
don't plan on having more kids, in Orky, it's quick. I mean, the recovery for the first week or
It's
so
like a
can
week,
kind of suck. Yeah.
but it's a
Um,
week.
yeah, it's not a big deal.
No.
So I highly recommend Orkies. They're wonderful.
I do want to take a moment and
Mhm.
say, for those of you that have not had an orgy, and I had already had a vasectomy at my point, so I
Oh,
don't have to
really?
worry. I never, yeah, I had that a long time ago, so I don't have to worry about birth control. Even if you're on estrogen, you can still get someone pregnant, right?
Hmm.
So until you've had that sperm tested to see if you still are making any, be careful. Use birth control. There's quite a few trans women out there that have wound up having making children they didn't think they could make.
All it takes is one.
All it takes is one, just one
And
good one getting through there. So don't assume that you can't get someone pregnant, please.
yeah, and
Of
even
course,
right
after an
after your
orgy, you
Orky,
can't.
right after your Orky, even my doctor said, still wait to be safe a month or two for
Yeah,
anything left in there. So,
that's something that I learned when I got my vasectomy. You have to like they really want you to go at least a month
hmm
um, with birth control, and they recommend 3. Now I can tell you, after having an orgy, I didn't want anybody to touch me for a while,
yeah.
but also I didn't. I personally didn't need to worry about it.
hmm Yeah, it's a little tender down there. So,
Yeah. Yep.
but yeah, so I mean, again, there's no right or wrong way to transition. If you in Orky's just uh, it's a great way to get off of those blockers and just not have to worry about it. And it also it makes tucking easier if you tuck. So because
Oh,
there's no balls there. So
it's barely a thing. It's barely
yeah,
a thing.
exactly.
And for those of you that are considering it and maybe just literally just had it, you might be like a little worried at first. Don't worry, things are going to continue to like shrink in that area,
hmm
um, and it will be very easy. Like first like week or two afterwards, you're still quite swollen. That's
Yeah,
going to
you're
go
not
away.
going to be tucking the first couple weeks. So
No, and that's
just
going to
wear a
go away. But
dress.
now, like 3 months in, it's like easy, super
Yeah,
easy. Like
exactly.
um, and even like when I go to the pool and swim and wear a bikini, like I'm not worried
It's
about
so
it.
much better. It's so much
Yeah.
better. I had an
Yep.
Orky last November, so
Yeah.
and they're wonderful. I mean, for me, the vaginoplasty is fucking amazing, but it is, as
Love
Erica
that.
said, it's a full-time job. It's a lot of work, and it hurts. I'm kind of slouching in my chair here, so
It is a major surgery.
it
Let's get
is.
that straight. That
hmm
is, was it 5 hours that you were under? I
My doctor
forget
does
how
it
long.
in 3, but
3. That's
she's a
wild.
fucking boss, so.
It's a major surgery. People on recovery is long, like major surgeries are, and it's in an
hmm
area that it is hard not to sit on or use or whatever, plus all the maintenance that comes with it. So
Yeah,
be not trying to dissuade anybody, but be prepared.
be
Set up your
prepared.
support network.
Yes, exactly. You definitely need a support network. So, like,
This is
because
not
I
a go
can't,
it alone thing.
yeah, well, I can't lift any more than like 10 pounds for
Yeah.
6 weeks post-op. And I have a 3-year-old that always wants to be picked up.
Yeah.
So,
Good luck.
yeah, so like his grandparents have been staying here and his other mom has been really, it's been mostly on her, which makes me feel
Hmm.
guilty as fuck. But
Yeah.
you know so yeah, that's, I guess it's the stuff going on with us. I wanted to give a plug. Some of you may remember Leo Caldwell, who was on our show
Mhm.
a few episodes ago.
We love
um,
Leo.
yeah, with it was Leo and Erica. He is now part of an organization called the Research Institute for Gender Therapeutics. You can find them by going to RIGT.org. I feel like I'm doing a voicemail. RIGT.org. Where are my headphones so loose? And
It is pronounced right,
is it
by the
pronounced
way.
right? Okay.
Yeah. We
Um,
pronounced it right.
there you go. Oh. Um, but it's what they're trying to do is normalize trans healthcare in the US.
Hmm.
And I mean, I imagine it might kind of spread out to for elsewhere in the world right now, but or in the future. But right now, trans healthcare in the US is very divisive. Like it's almost Civil War divisive, which is kind of terrifying. But they're looking to, they say that gender dysphoria can be a life-threatening condition, and
Hmm.
adults with gender dysphoria are 9 times more likely to attempt self-unaliving than the general population. 9 times.
Yes.
And I mean, if you talk to any of us on the show, or you follow, just following any accounts of trans people online, gender dysphoria, by starting our transition, saved many of our lives. And right now, there are no FDA-approved treatments for gender dysphoria.
Mhm.
And healthcare for gender diverse individuals is often restricted, stigmatized, and funding to support research has been limited. There's been barely
Yeah.
any research on trans people, though.
Yeah.
Erica's going to be
I am
talking,
transing.
transing. Yeah, she's going to be talking about a wonderful one that Erin Reed found here in a little bit. But so Wright is working to research, develop, and seek FDA approval of
Mhm.
gender affirming treatments, which is huge.
Yeah. It's really
Because
important.
yeah, we have to push back against the far right conservatives they're making up um, their own dialogue on who trans people are and our care and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
they'll latch on to like
Anything.
one or two detransitioners and use those people as an example for the entire trans community, all the
Hmm.
millions of us. And when you look at the research, the detransitioning is like, depending on the research you see, 1 to maybe 10%.
And
um
an important qualifier in that is that, let me say this right across the top. If you detransition, that's it, and that's the choice you make. That's a
mhm,
great choice for you, because
it's
the only
fine.
person that matters is you and your opinion. However, um, quite a few of people who detransition wind up transitioning again later. And by and large, it has less to do with not seeing themselves or feeling whole in themselves. It has far, 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 far more to do with how they've been received by friends and family and the general
Yeah,
public.
yeah.
It's outside pressure that drives that.
A
So
safety
when you
thing and
come across
bigotry.
a, yeah, when you come across a detransitioner, please, give them your love and support them. Obviously, if they're working for the other side, you don't need to do that.
Hmm. It's hard. So, but they're trying to just normalize trans healthcare. So if you are able to support, they're a wonderful organization to support.
Mhm.
They're run by doctors,
Yes.
and they are supported by people in the community.
Hmm.
I sent it to my own surgeon because she's very, very involved in the trans community.
Yeah.
So, which is good because it's
Yeah.
her job is performing
And
surgeries on trans people.
there's a couple of reasons why it's really important, right? Number one, it's already a widely accepted system of care for trans people, right? Like, despite what you hear in the media, like 80% of all doctors in the US, and every reputable medical organization also supports gender affirming care, right?
Hmm.
But if we can get FDA approval for it, it helps break down barriers
Yeah,
and make care easier, and drug trials easier, and care trials easier. But it helps the rest of the world. A lot of the world goes by what the FDA is doing. Now,
yeah.
granted, there are things in other countries that you can get as a trans person that are not part of our care here in the US, and that's because they have some different laws and different rules and
Hmm.
whatever. But generally, if we have FDA approval, we tend to see that start to populate throughout the rest of the world. So it helps
Yeah.
everybody out.
Yeah, the U.S. has a lot of influence on the world for better or for worse. Looking at
Cultural
Canada right now,
imperialism. That's what that's
yeah,
called. Cultural imperialism.
looking at Canada right now, they're turning for the worse. It's kind of scary up there right now.
Yeah. Everybody's going
They're
through it right now.
yeah. So,
But
yeah.
it's no coincidence that everybody's also going through white nationalist movements right now
Hmm.
as well, right?
Thanks,
So
Florida.
Florida, the UK,
Yeah.
Europe, Italy, for example,
Hmm.
with white nationalist movements. And actually, this is really kind of going down the deep end. I read a really interesting study not too long ago that talks about, um, globally, we see countries move towards conservatism and extremism after um, large events, right? So coming out of the pandemic, when it's really shut down the world, it is a recurring thing that happens after 9/11, after World War II, after Vietnam, after World War One. Countries tend to pull in, and they get xenophobic because they need to take care of themselves, and naturally people tend to go too far with that, and that's when white nationalist movements tend to pick up in speed, right? So
Makes sense to
uh,
me.
and as a part of that, because white nationalist movements are always heavily rooted in the patriarchy, and especially that Western European Protestant point of view of people need to be very narrowly defined, right? That's when we see the
Hmm.
most anti-LGBTQ hate happen at the same time. So
Yeah.
as long as that white national movement is thriving, that's as long as this movement is going to continue to really push on us.
As I've been saying,
Votes.
5 years. I think the next 5 years are going to be tough.
Tough. But we'll get through it. We got through
Well,
it coming out of the gay panic of the 80s and the AIDS crisis of the 90s, and had a
mhm.
really good 10 or 15 years. Um, we will get through it, but it will
Yeah,
also come up again in the future, right?
it
As
will.
long as these xenophobic movements continue to get some traction based on local or global events, we're going to keep repeating this cycle.
Humanity doesn't learn. It's just kind of what it boils down to
No,
be. So
no, it doesn't. But
we're,
go out and support right. Give them
yes,
your money. Give them, spread their influence. Repost them on LinkedIn.
yes,
It's really good for all of us.
yes. It's good for, yeah, all of humanity, really. So, but ow, sorry, getting some
Oh,
nerve pain. So,
ouch.
um, well, then I guess a good topic, we can start getting into our news things here. You wanted to talk about the study on the study
Yeah,
that Erin found.
yeah.
So,
So let's do that first. Probably a little bit shorter than talking about Erin's current trans map of the U.S. So she actually recently put a piece out there. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you go to her Substack, it's like 4 or 5 articles down. There was recently a study done out of, I got my notes in front of me, out of Australia, out of Melbourne, Australia, right? And it's a really unique study in that it is one of the first times that we're able to have what's considered high quality studies done on gender affirming care. But before I dive into that real quick, I want to talk about the difference between high quality and low quality, because you hear this a lot, especially in the anti-trans hate machine style media out there, right? And so the difference between high quality and low quality ultimately comes down to ethics, right? And by that, I mean, most studies are low quality because of ethical medical standards, right? So for an example of, and frankly, most of the medical advances we've been made in the last 50 to 70 years have been from low quality studies because of ethics in place. And it goes like this. A high quality study is when you can have like a double blind study, total anonymity, where you have a control group and a non-control group to test how one thing is working and not, kind of get around the placebo effect and all of that, right? But when it comes to medical care, that becomes quite difficult to do. For example, you can't test a heart treatment procedure by giving half of your group a heart transplant and telling the other people they did get a heart transplant when they didn't. That's not an ethical medical way to go, and
no.
thus it cannot be a high quality study. It becomes low quality. Low quality does not mean that it has no quality. It does not mean that we can't talk about the efficacy. It does not mean that it was something we shouldn't follow. It just means that we can't ethically conduct a high quality study because it would be cruel to tell people they had a heart transplant when they didn't, right? So you need to understand the difference in the two. And the media has really focused on the idea of low quality because most people don't understand that, when by and large, most of our medical treatments come from low quality studies. It doesn't mean they weren't very good studies. It doesn't mean that they weren't excellent studies. It means that because of ethical standards, we can't tell somebody we did something that we did not do, right? Especially when it comes to life or death procedures.
Mhm.
Right. So this one happens to be a high quality study, which is great because we didn't put people at risk. We didn't mislead people. They were able to construct a study to test out the effect of gender affirming care to reduce suicidality. Right. So this is done out of Melbourne, Australia. The control groups were 24 cisgendered men, 24 cisgendered women, and 24 trans women. I'm sorry,
Trans
trans
men.
mass,
Yeah.
trans men's, right? Because it's testosterone. This is a study on testosterone. And how they went about this study was they, um, put each group through a measure of how are you feeling about your life in general right now, or is there any suicidality? And within the groups of trans masculine people, they actually had, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up two different studies. Sorry. That is a study on brain mapping that I started out with. So let me back up. This study out of Australia compared trans masculine people that would be on hormones and not on hormones, right? And so the idea was that each person in the study identified that they wanted to be on testosterone for their care, right? So the groups were divided into people that would receive that care within 1 month and people who would receive that care after 3 months. And 3 months is the standard operating procedure within Australia, right? So it didn't really change anything for them. And those people didn't know that there was another group that had access to that drug within a month, right? So again, this is how we're ethically taking care of people. We didn't withhold from people longer than what would be the norm.
Yeah.
Right. What we did was we gave access earlier to people than they expected. Within that group of people that did get their get HRT, we saw suicidality rates drop, like plummet. Whereas within those that did not yet have access to T but know they would have it, their rates really of suicidal ideation did not really drop much. They didn't really reduce on just even knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an excellent, I would definitely recommend you go read Erin's article, right? But it's
I'll
an
link
excellent
it.
way to show how access to gender affirming care really helps people's mental state, particularly after being on it, right? Because they checked in with those people that had T after a month, followed up with them at month 2 and month 3 at the same rate they did with the other group. And you can really see how just even being on that really changed their perspective and really changed their outcomes. So it's an important study because it's the first one we've been able to conduct that's a high quality study. Again, high quality comes with what ethically can we do to really get some veracity behind this, but it really shows how it reduces suicidality, which is frankly one of the most important points that you can get on the table in terms of promoting this care, continuing to get doctors on board with it, medical associations on board with it, the FDA on board with it, for example, right? We're showing actual meaningful benefits that people are alive, right? So that's why it's a really important study. I recommend you go read it, her articles. Great. I think she links the original study, which is if you haven't done much scientific reading, it's a tough one to get through. Coming from a medical background within my family, it's a little bit easier for me. I definitely recommend you consume Erin's article before you try to go and read a whole bunch of biological stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a great one to check out. And it's really important because it's one of the first current modern day studies that allow us to say, by every medical standard, we've met the bar.
Yeah. Which is kind of huge.
It's huge. Yeah,
It's
it's
absolutely
huge.
I mean, it's stuff that any trans person or any doctor trans person could have told you already, but this is a great pushback against the just flat out fabrications that the far right have been doing.
Especially,
so.
and one of their talking points, Vanessa, tends to be like, oh, suicide rates don't go down. They're just as suicidal. No, that's different. The suicidality rates are actually quite drastically reduced.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, we see higher suicidality rates when people do not have people around them that love and accept who they are, make space for them, right? Again, this kind of goes back to why most people detransition is because their environment is not friendly to who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it should help break down those narratives. But let's be honest, those people on the far right, at the far extreme of this, are not going to care about this study. We don't really care about them. What
No.
we care about is the judicial system that needs to uphold access to care laws.
Mm-hmm. And they can use this study. So
yes,
it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And I hope that's not going to be the last one. So, but.
And so let me just say this. The original study that I was talking about was one that I read last night on brain mapping for transgender people, specifically focused on trans feminine people. It's a great one. You can go look it up, go read it. And it really shows, and that's why I was complaining the two, because I'd read the two too close together.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great study that shows that, and this study was trans women I'm assuming it would be true for trans masculine people. When you take a look at brain structures and brain mapping of cis men and cis women, trans women tend to be in between, right? And this is people that were not on hormones yet, because we know once you're on hormones, that brain continues to develop in that direction. So it shows that even from a biological standpoint within our brains, we are different than cis people.
Physiological, actual, yeah. And I mean, any trans person could tell you that too. So
totally.
But
I mean, that was the first benefit that I felt on HRT. My brain worked right.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks.
It is that fast, because our brains are craving, our bodies are feeding our brains the wrong hormone. So when we fix that, it makes things a whole lot easier. So
much better. It doesn't solve everything, but it solves that daily thought process. Yes.
It's a major, it's a major step. So So
Okay,
yeah,
well, let's go
that's
back to
huge.
you and the map.
Um, yeah. Erica brought you good news. I brought you not so good news.
Mm,
If you follow Erin, or again, Erin Reed, I'm going to be linking all this stuff in the description of both the podcast and YouTube. Erin is, I consider her a hero to the trans community. She
totally.
is arguably the leading journalist regarding trans rights in the country, if not the world. And she is engaged to Zoe Zephyr, who is the Montana State House representative that was in the news a lot recently for being
Mhm.
censured by the Republicans there. And now
Did
she's
you,
been, what's that?
hate to break it, did you see that Zoe, I think it was yesterday, Zoe announced that she was named 2 times Hot
Yes.
100 most
Yeah.
influential people, something like that yesterday?
Which
That's
is
amazing.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Zoe and Adam Conover's on that too. I love Adam
Yeah.
Conover. Um, but yeah, and Zoe has actually been like kind of traveling the country right now. She's hanging out with the reps from are they both named Justin? I forget, from
Yes,
Tennessee.
Justin and
Yeah,
Justin. Yeah.
yeah, the two Justins.
Hmm.
She's hanging out with them, and then she was hanging out in I believe Nebraska with. Why is my brain forgetting her name? I mean, I've even talked to her through emails, but I suck with names. I'm sorry. Um, but the rep there that has a trans kid that was holding
Oh.
up their legislature. Um,
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I could not hang on to their name either.
I am going to look this up really quick in the email. So I'm putting a long pause here so I know to cut this out. Um, Nebraska.
This is when no one's looking, they won't see this is when we flash you.
Megan Hunt.
Megan Hunt.
Yes, Megan Hunt. So yeah, Megan Hunt. So Zoe is hanging out with Megan Hunt as well, and that's kind of cool. But anyways, back to Erin. I sidetracked myself there, and Erin has been keeping up for the past couple years, at least, keeping up a map of
Hmm.
anti-trans laws against kids.
Hmm.
For that's been very informative, and it's a lot of adults have been paying close attention to it as well because it has those maps had implications for us as well. But trans kids
Hmm.
are definitely have been more under fire than adults.
The
Um,
first domino to fall.
Yeah, exactly, which is just so fucking evil. I mean, they're picking
Disgusting.
on kids. It is disgusting. But Aaron now has an adult anti-trans risk assessment map, and it's it's similar to the one for the kids. The one for youth is still more dangerous. There are 5 categories. If you look at the map, the darker blue states are the safest. The light blue ones
Hmm.
are hopefully good. And then there's actually,
Shades of
yeah, there's
orange and
shades
red,
of
right?
orange. So actually, there's 6 different colors now. There's like moderate risk, high risk, and very high risk, and then there's Florida. Um,
Black.
yeah, um, and I mean, this is how the country is divided right now. We are in a very, very scary time where
Hmm.
the right is using our community, the trans community, as their main thing that they are platforming on, and
Hmm.
it's there is a sharp divide in this country via safe and not, where we are either second class citizens or, I mean, hopefully full citizens in the blue ones, but there's still pushback there as well.
Yeah.
But there are many states. I live in Ohio, which is getting Ohio is kind of considered the Florida of the North. So
Yeah.
we're getting bad. It's just happening slowly. But Florida is now at a point where trans people should not travel there.
Yeah.
Trans people that live there are having adults are having their care being taken away from them. They can't get hormones anymore, which is essentially state-sponsored genocide. So people are
Yep.
fleeing that state. Trans people cannot use bathrooms there.
Mm.
I mean, if you pass really well, you'll probably be okay. But um, Erica, I love your phrase. that I identify with it as well. You pass as a trans person. I'm the same
Hmm.
way. I pass as a trans person. So when I go into women's bathrooms, I get looks. If I went to one in
Yeah.
Florida, I could be thrown in jail for a year at this point,
Yeah.
which,
If you refuse to leave the bathroom.
yeah.
And that also means that cis people will also go through that, right? It's again,
Hmm.
it's enforcing what masculinity looks like, it's enforcing what femininity looks like, and you're going to
Exactly.
have, um, the butch lesbian community is having problems with this, right?
Hmm.
The if the sort of effeminate side of the gay community is having problems with this as well. Not to mention people that are not part of the LGBT community. It's terrible. Not to mention for us, right? It's awful. It's targeted us,
Hmm.
and I think one of the things that's really interesting about this map is it's a really good indicator of also what's coming next for
Yeah.
other groups, right? So if you think, oh, I don't need to worry about this because I'm not trans and I don't really care about the whole trans things, listen, if you're a BIPOC person, if you are belong to any type of marginalized community, you are next up on the slate,
Hmm.
right? And very much this map correlates to all those places. So please continue to work your intersectionality to support our
Yes.
community. But if you're having trouble getting people on board, work the intersectionality of all marginalized communities because this is their roadmap. And
Hmm.
why? Because it's easier to get people who don't understand what it means to be transgender behind this. Like it all started with the
Hmm.
whole transgender sports narrative, right? And then kids, like mutilating kids, even though no child's having surgery,
No, it doesn't
right? Because
happen.
these are easy things to get the moms behind and get them activated about. And
Mutilating.
yes, and once you've got them thinking one way on something, then you keep feeding them other things until you've
Yeah.
got them really after what you want. So
Hmm.
this is bad for us, but it's bad for every marginalized community. Please continue to consider intersectionality as you go forward. Use this map to let people know that if you're not white, cis, straight, male, that's a Christian, you are in trouble.
Exactly. I was just gonna say that white cis het Christian males. If you're not that, then you are a target. We
Mm-hmm.
are the test group.
We're the canary in the coal mine,
Yeah,
if you know that phrase.
and um, they're not going to stop with us. It's
Nope,
how it's happened before. Look at Nazi Germany. They started with trans people, and they
they sure did.
branched out from there. So, and they're being fairly successful right now. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who's going to be next, but it's going to happen quickly. And
Yeah.
there's that phrase where I forget exactly how it goes, but it's like all these people were asking for my help. I wasn't paying
And
attention, and now I need help, and there's no one left to help me.
right.
So,
First they came for um, the Jews.
mhm,
Then they came for the gays. I think this is the way this goes. Then they came for like blah blah blah, and then they came for me. And it always goes with they came for X, and I did nothing. And then
yeah,
they came for me, but there was no one left to support me.
exactly, exactly, and that's how it's going to happen. We have to
Yep.
push back. So, I mean,
Dividing, get us fighting against each other. Actually, this is the roadmap. If you can get
it
marginalized communities
is.
fighting against each other, then you're going to be very successful because we actually make up the majority of people on this planet,
We do, we do.
right?
But that's the thing that it's Tucker Carlson just had a he was talking about how he was saying that the left is a united force and the right is scattered, which no, it's the complete opposite. Right now, the
Yeah.
far right, they are a united force for the most part, and the left, which the American left, on an international level, is still pretty centrist. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
we are not united. We are fucking scattered. We have so much infighting. It's just this, that, and the other.
Yeah. They've got us
Um,
fighting our own individual battles,
exactly. And as long as we do that, we're vulnerable. We
right?
need to
So
unite.
show up to women's marches, show up to
Exactly.
Black Lives Matters marches, show up to help combat anti-Asian and hate. Like show up for all
Hmm.
of that and ask them to show up for you.
Yeah.
And if
We
you're part
have
of
to
the
be
LGBT
united.
alliance, fuck you.
Mm, that is so sickening. Um,
We gave
yeah.
y'all's ass shelter during the Stonewall riots.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
threw the first brick.
Exactly. There would not be Stonewall without trans people. So,
Hmm.
but if you're not familiar with the LGB Alliance, it's the the LGB, forget the T. So
Without the T.
yeah, they are purposely excluding the trans community, though many of us are also LGB as well. You
Yes,
know, I'm
yes.
lesbian, but yeah, it's sickening, and I don't know. That's the depressing stuff. But check out the map. Erin lists state by state with kind of what to expect with each state,
Yeah,
stuff that's kind of going. Like right now, Erin says she's read all 532 bills that target trans
that's
people
a
in America this
lot.
year. 532. I mean, if you vote
Mhm.
Republican, if you can just step back and ask yourself, what is the last thing that the Republican Party did that benefited you? I'm not saying Democrats are good either. Democrats suck as well. Our two party system sucks. Most of them are corrupt, being bought off by people. You know, our presidential candidate selection is piss poor, but
Yeah.
it's it's what we have. We have either people working to exterminate us or people that kind of don't care. And unfortunately, we have to stick with the people that kind of don't care. But the amount of these bills, like, is this really what you want your representatives to focus
Yeah.
on?
We're not
Just
dealing with the economy. We're
exactly,
not dealing this with the state of job affairs. We're not
exactly.
dealing with
The
the Food and Drug
homeless,
Administration. We're not dealing with the skyrocketing cost of medical care and drugs. We're not dealing with so many things. We're not dealing with our
veterans.
domestic policies. We are
Yeah,
not dealing with our international policies. We are not dealing with the crisis, the climate, like all of, like they're like, no, the only thing we're dealing with is just fucking over trans people.
yeah.
That's all that your election dollars have paid for the
Hmm.
last 4 years.
And if you've donated to Trump's PAC, that's all just going to his fucking legal fees. So,
The thing that always gets me that is so wild about our conservative party is that when you take a look at that party, by and large, it exists in every state, but most of it is the swath that follows the anti-trans map that you were just
mhm.
talking about, right? And the people that live there are generally at or near the poverty line. It
Yeah,
is wild that that party has talked that those people into giving up government access to care and support they need, giving up things that will support them down the line, like retirement and things like that, reduction of funding for almost every program that would support them, because they've convinced them that if you have these programs, you won't ever have your shot at $1 million, or whatever it is. And baby, if you're at the poverty line, you're not, that shouldn't be a concern for you.
no,
You shouldn't be voting to take money and support away from people. You shouldn't be voting for a country that does not want to support the people that live there when you're one of the people that needs that support. Some
exactly.
critical thinking needs to happen. Now, the Democrats aren't great, as you've called out. None of the parties are great, as you've called out. But voting for a party that is literally going to make your life harder, that's going to increase taxes on you, the lowest percentage of people in the United States, is a wild thing to do.
It really is. But it's brainwashing.
It's brain. It is
It's
absolutely
what it boils
brainwashing.
down to be. There's a meme I saw. I've mentioned it on the show before, but it shows a woman sitting in a chair punching herself in the face, and it says the caption just says, "Women who vote conservative."
Yeah.
It's you're voting
Yes.
against your own interests.
I know women who have voted conservatively that would want abortion to continue. And I'm like,
Hmm.
how? Well, I can never vote. Okay, great. Then don't vote for a Republican. They're actively
Yeah.
trying to take away the thing that you needed and used.
Hmm.
I don't get it.
No, the two-party system's broken. I mean, in the next decade or two, I really expect things to change a lot. Once the boomers are out, and
Yeah. And
um, and
they're the
we
people who are
start,
doing most of the voting.
yeah, exactly. So we need Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z to show up to the fucking polls.
Yes. But it's also why we need to fight gerrymandering, right? It's also
Yes.
why we need to work on, like, one of the most effective ways to really change politics isn't at the national level, it is at your local level. Pay
Hmm.
attention to the people you're voting for that are going to be overseeing those policies and changing those things. You're going to have more effect voting the right people in there than you're going to have. I'm not saying don't vote for the president, please vote for the presidency, but your vote's going to do more effect locally than it will do nationally.
It starts with the
But
school
vote,
boards and
vote,
city
vote, vote,
council.
vote, vote. That's right.
Yeah, because that's where these people get their starts.
That's
so,
right. And that's where
okay.
federal laws and state laws are enacted and carried out and enforced.
Mm-hmm.
Vote
Exactly.
locally.
It's all trickles from there. So, okay, well, we are out of time for today, but thank you everyone for joining us. Please let us know what you think of the new format of the show. And yeah, we're just going to be kind of covering things as they come up. We still will have some themed episodes. I know my surgeon has expressed interest in being on the show, which would be an amazing episode about gender confirming surgery for the trans feminine or anybody that wants a vagina, really, that doesn't have one already. But yeah, we're just going to be rotating hosts, and we'll just kind of be plugging along. So let us know what you think of this. We're hoping that this kind of gives a little bit more of a timely, informative thing for people that they might not know. And yeah, like, comment, share, subscribe, share. Yeah, we
Tell your
really need
friends,
to grow.
tell your family, share.
Yes.
Also,
yeah.
Donate.
Yes, donate, please.
She just told you what she spends on this a month. Donate.
Yeah, I'm currently almost $300 in the hole, personally. I am looking at starting up I'm going to turn Transcending Humanity into a business. I'm looking at starting a Delaware LLC to have it both as the podcast and also as my personal consulting company, so I can kind of make some money on the sides, and then we can kind of legitimize the show and consulting for like diversity and stuff like that. That's kind of on my plans right now. I've been talking with some people about that. So,
awesome.
But
do it.
Yeah, that's my plan. But thank you, Erica, for being on with me today.
You're welcome.
I think you and I make a good pair on the show.
Yep. A little bit of chaos, a little bit of knowledge.
Exactly.
That's what we bring.
I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope everyone else has a wonderful day, or half your day. That's what as I say. But
go rest that bottom.
Yeah, I need to get out of this chair before I go and edit again. So I'm hoping to go see Father Nathan Monk tonight.
Oh yes.
I'm trying to find a date for it, but if not, I'm going to go myself. Even though
it just gives you more room to spread out your crap while you're there.
Yeah, well, I'm not really supposed to drive, but we already have tickets. Lauren can't go, Uber. So I don't want to Uber. I don't have that kind of money. So, but
okay,
I can get there. But
be careful driving.
Yeah, I'm living off my GoFundMe's right now. So, but yeah, hopefully I'll have some news about Father Nathan Monk. If you don't follow him, he's hilarious. So, and that's coming from a hardcore atheist. So follow him.
Hardcore.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day, or whatever. I already said that. Toodles.
Bye.